Alright everyone, what is up here today? YouTube, Jigsaw0097, bringing you this quick video. Get that eagle right in center there for you. So we're about to discuss some Philadelphia Eagles. This one actually has to do with the recent appearance of Orlando Scandrick on First Take. As you guys know, this happened I think this happened yesterday. You know, there's been lots of outrage about this. I've had time to read it and analyze it, and I kind of just want to go over it. The best article I found for this was NewJersey.com. The title of the article is Orlando Scandrick Rips Eagles, Howie Roseman, Doug Peterson, Malcolm Jenkins, Others After Release. There's some issues going on there. I will leave a link to this article in the description as well if you guys want to check it out for yourself. But I wanted to go over this because honestly, guys, I'm trying to take as unbiased of an approach here as possible. I know a lot of people are just outcrying, saying Orlando Scandrick is a hater, he's a cowboy, yada, yada, yada. That all may be true. However, the only way to truly move forward in life is you have to look at criticism and actually take it and analyze it and weigh it against the possibility that it could be actually correct. So that's what I'm going to do here. So we're going to start here, and I'm just going to read the different things that he says. So as you guys know, it wasn't First Take, sorry. He appeared on Undisputed. I always get those confused because it's Skip Bayless. He went on Undisputed, and he basically discussed his time with the Eagles. As you guys know, he wasn't really with the Eagles for that long. I think he played in, he basically played in the preseason and minicamp and all that, and then the Eagles decided to cut him, and they brought him back. I believe it was the Vikings game. So he played through, no, I think he played through the Jets, the Vikings, and the Cowboys. So he's with the Eagles for 3 games. So he was in the locker room for a decent amount of time, you know, almost a month. So that's why I'm saying I don't want to just take what he's saying as like, oh, he's a hater, he's an Eagles hater, even though he is a lifelong Cowboy, you know. I think he was with the Cowboys for like 10 years. So anyway, it says, it seems the veteran cornerback didn't take the decision very well to cut him, blah, blah, blah. And the first one is, he says, on Howie Roseman, he says, I don't believe anything that Howie says. Howie is one of those people that if they told me it was raining outside, I'd probably get some shorts just in case. He put it to me as they wanted to play younger players. They're a mess on defense, and they need to get more defensive linemen. So we'll see how that works for them in Buffalo. Right away, there's things I agree about this. So, first of all, he's basically saying Howie Roseman is a lying scumbag in so many words, which I don't completely agree with. I don't think that you can't trust Howie. However, I do think that Howie is starting to become, and this could be one of the reasons, who knows, Howie could be becoming one of those people in the league that people don't like dealing with. Because what happened with Howie Roseman, guys, is that when the Eagles were building their Super Bowl team, what he was doing was very ahead of the game. This was at a time like 2016, 2017, when most teams would value their draft picks more than getting free agents. And so Howie Roseman kind of flipped that on its ear, and he said, you know, we're going to go ahead and get free agents instead, sign under these 1-year deals for really cheap, and then we're going to win from there. So I think that was one of the reasons why he was so successful that season. However, a lot of teams are doing this now, guys. As you've seen this year, the Eagles have been sitting on their butts. Nothing's been happening, and we've been seeing teams like the 49ers, the Patriots, the Cowboys, all these teams making deals, making trades to bring in other guys. The Rams getting Jalen Ramsey. Meanwhile, the Eagles are doing nothing. What I think has happened is I think what Howie did back in 2017 was revolutionary, and the league caught on to it. So now the asking prices for these players are much higher, and Howie Roseman is being a cheapskate. He's trying to fleece his way into getting players. He's trying to undersell, you know, undercut. You know, keep in mind, this is the guy that got a first-round draft pick from Minnesota for Sam Bradford. This guy has definitely got an ego from that, I'm sure. He's thinking high of himself. You know, he rebuilt the team after Chip Kelly destroyed it. That's his legacy, and I think that's gotten to his head a little bit. So I think there's a grain of truth here. I also highly, actually, from what I've seen, highly agree with the fact that they want to play younger players. We've seen this already, guys. They want Sidney Jones in there. They just force these guys in. The biggest one, the most egregious one this year is the use of Miles Sanders over Jordan Howard. It is absolutely criminal, in my opinion, how they force Miles Sanders in these plays when you have one of the best running backs in the league in Jordan Howard. So what he says right there, guys, honestly, I kind of agree with it. And obviously we are a mess on defense. And I've been saying the same thing. We'll see how this goes in Buffalo, because the Eagles have made no moves. They're just going to stick with what they got. You know, they're down in Orlando Scandrick now. They're also down a Zach Brown from the Minnesota game. So I don't see the Eagles getting better on defense. I see them getting worse. And we'll see if there's a move to be made. But the game is in one day, so I don't think it's going to happen this week, guys. Then he says, on Doug Peterson, Cowboys guarantee. Zach Brown goes out and says, we need to put it in Kirk Cousins' hands. He gets released. Put it in Kirk Cousins' hands. He's basically saying Kirk Cousins is trash. The head coach goes out and says, we're going to go out to Dallas and we're going to win and be in first place. Should he get released? Now, I've already said this. This is very divided among Eagles fans. There's Eagles fans that think Doug Peterson absolutely should have said this, and there's people that said he shouldn't have said it. Me, I fall in the camp of just keep your mouth shut when it comes to things like this, especially if you're a losing team. You don't need to be riling up your opponent. So I 100% agree with him on this. Zach Brown needed to shut his mouth. Doug Peterson needed to shut his mouth. Do I agree with the Eagles releasing Zach Brown? I mean, in hindsight, maybe they should have just, sucked it up and kept him. The problem with the Eagles for me is they're trying to play this Bill Belichick thing all of a sudden, where they're learning that you can't just coddle these players. So they were trying to send a message. I get what they're trying to do with this Zach Brown thing. They're trying to send a message to the locker room to let people know that they can't just walk around in the NovaCare acting like they own the place, saying whatever they want. But then Doug Peterson goes out and says this, and it makes him look like just as big of a fool. So I completely agree. I actually agree 100% with Orlando on this one. The Eagles, in my opinion, should just shut their mouth, go out there and prove it on the field, and that's it. You don't need to crap talk. You don't need to smack talk. It goes the same with fans. This is why I don't really talk smack on other channels. I'm not going after other Eagles or other Cowboys, Redskins, or Giants channels or anything like that, because I don't think you should be talking crap. You need to see a result, and then you can gloat about it, in a sportsman kind-like way. But if you're going to do crap talking, it should always be for fun, and it should never be in a situation like this when you're a loser. That's what the Eagles are right now. They are an under 500 team, and they are getting blown out, guys, by teams. So 100% agree with him on this. On the Eagles coming off the Super Bowl win, I think they're having a tough time dealing with success. Whether you've got to say, oh, we're going to get it together, oh, no one believes in us, oh, it's about us, you're already doomed. So I only somewhat agree with this, based on what I know. I think Malcolm Jenkins last season said something like he didn't want to see the Super Bowl banners in the building and all this stuff. I do think, though, that the Eagles, they got it in their heads that they're like world beaters, because they beat the Patriots, guys. What they did in 2017 cannot be understated. It is one of the finest Super Bowl wins that I've ever seen, and I'm not just being biased. I've talked to many fans of the NFL in general, and they said that Super Bowl was one of the best Super Bowl wins they've ever seen in like the history of the league. Just what the Eagles were able to do with Nick Foles and all the things that went wrong, just turn it around and take a ride to the Super Bowl and beat arguably the best team, best coach, best quarterback in the league. So, of course, doing something like that, guys, it's going to make you arrogant. It's going to make you think that you are the world beater that you are. But I think a sense of complacency has indeed settled in Philadelphia. Even though Malcolm Jenkins was saying that they didn't want to rest on their laurels, I think there are a lot of guys in there that kind of have this attitude. This is why I made the video previously about how Doug Peterson needs to take control of this locker room. He needs to go in there and he needs to find out who wants it and who doesn't. And clean house. There's also this huge factor in the locker room, which I will get to later, about Nick Foles over Carson Wentz. I think you have definite guys in there that are buying into Foles over Wentz. So let's just continue. Like I said, though, I half believe in this. I think there are certain players that definitely are not letting the Super Bowl get to them, but I think a lot of these younger guys that came into the league and won the Super Bowl, like Corey Clement, these guys that just literally won a Super Bowl like in their second year of playing. Another one was Derek Barnett. I think that was his first year. and he won the Super Bowl. So, of course, these guys are going to get arrogant. They come to a team and they win a Super Bowl in their first freaking season. Then he says, on the Eagles locker room, let's just say where there's smoke, there's fire. You've been in a lot of locker room to Shannon Sharp. If me and you are having a conversation in the locker room and it gets leaked to him, looks at Bayless. So he's going to get the edited version. What was the version that me and you were actually talking about? That locker room is different. I would tell guys when I came there that, like, I still feel like they are living on that Super Bowl high, like it's over, you're living in the past. But some of these guys came into the league and first thing they experienced was 13-3 and the Super Bowl. That's what it's all about. Yeah, so that's what I just said. And I do think there are some guys in there. Corey Clement's a really big example for me because he's been a dud ever since the Super Bowl. He's been an absolute dud, and and Wendell Smallwood was another one. They ended up getting rid of him. Wendell Smallwood was pretty good last season, but the Eagles they had a lot of guys that, you know, it was just a perfect situation in 2017. I don't know how else to describe it. A lot of these key guys on the team are because of 2017, like a Jake Elliott. But, you know, you got aging guys now like Darren Sproles, you know, Jason Peters. There is this weird disconnect, I think, now with the Eagles over the Super Bowl. I just think the Super Bowl changed everything. So I'll just continue because he does get into a lot of the things I want to still talk about. So it says, on Lane Johnson's comments after the Cowboys lost about players showing up late, you get Lane saying people are late to meetings. There's some accountability issues there, and it starts at the top. I was just talking about that to somebody. Why not go to the guy and tell them on the plane? Lane is a hell of a player. He didn't have a hell of a game on Sunday. The first thing you could have did is look in the mirror. So I 100% agree with this too. I think Lane calling out players to the media, again, just a mistake. The Eagles need to shut up when it comes to the media. This needs to stay in the locker room. These press conferences, these media conferences are utterly pointless. All it does is make the media create videos like mine, you know, or whatever else, spinning whatever they think is going on. No one knows what's going on in the locker room except these guys. Orlando Scandrick was in this locker room. This is why I'm not just discrediting what he's saying, even though he could just be a hater at this point. But you have to have been in the locker room, and I agree completely. I think Lane Johnson should be taking a leadership role on this team. He's one of the veterans. He's been around since 2013 when Chip Kelly drafted him as a first-round draft pick. So he should take some of these guys aside and help them out a little more and stop leaking this to the media, because all that does, that causes resentment, that causes anger. You know, people are now going to look at Lane Johnson like he doesn't have our backs. He's saying this stuff to the media, so agree with him on that. And then here's the one on the Eagles preferring Nick Foles. There's a lot of pressure on Carson Wentz. We've all kind of figured that. But let's start here. Nick Foles is not walking through that door. Are there people in that locker room that would still want Nick? Yeah, but that's not a knock on Carson. On Carson Wentz, Scandrick complimented Wentz's work ethic and said they're all in on Carson. It's his team. So yeah, again, I will reiterate what I've said in the past. If it was me, as a coaching standpoint, if I had the team from 2017 until now, I personally would have went with Nick Foles over Carson Wentz just because of the chemistry he had. However, what he's saying here is that, and what I've said in my previous videos just recently, is that Nick Foles is gone, guys. He's not coming through the door. This is why I made the video saying Doug and Wentz are here to stay, because they are. Nick Foles is not coming back. It is up to the Eagles, Doug Peterson, and Carson Wentz to figure this thing out. And if they can't get guys that are buying into Wentz, they need to send them away. Okay, if they're still in this Nick Foles love fest where they can't get over the fact that Nick Foles won a Super Bowl for them, and for some reason they can't get on the Wentz wagon, then they need to go, and you need to bring in guys that will buy into the scheme. I mean, one of the most apparent things was just, even though just Deshaun Jackson hasn't played really at all this season, just go back and look at that first game against Washington, guys. Look at how much chemistry him and Carson Wentz has. Do you know why they have chemistry? Because Deshaun Jackson was not part of the Nick Foles Super Bowl win. So he was able to just basically come at it from a fresh perspective with Wentz. And that's what Carson Wentz needs. He needs brand new guys that don't look at him as like the guy that got injured during the Super Bowl run. They're going to have to they're in sort of a semi-rebuild. I don't think it's a full rebuild, but they're definitely going to have to weed out some of these guys in the offseason if they want to continue to be successful in the future. So I think that's what he's getting at. Like he said, this is the key here. They're all in on Carson. It's his team. He's talking about the Eagles brass. He's talking about Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, Doug Peterson. They are all in on Carson. And if the players aren't all in on Carson, the players need to go. And then the last thing he talks about is on Malcolm Jenkins and the defense. He says, I think there are some selfish players in that defense. Rasul Douglas took some unwanted heat for some blown coverages against the Vikings on other selfish play. We don't have to say names, but we know who they are. I think that when you wear a C on your jersey, Jenkins is a captain. It's your job to bring guys along. You need to take the hard job. You need to bring guys together. I don't think that's the case. So this is the one thing with him that I don't agree with really at all. I do think that there are some selfish players in that locker room for sure, but I don't think Malcolm Jenkins in particular is one of them, because Malcolm Jenkins, in my mind, he's a leader, guys. He was another huge part of why the Eagles won the Super Bowl. He's like, people are calling him the Brian Dawkins of today's Eagles, and I kind of agree, because he's kind of like one of the quarterbacks on the defense. I think the real issue here is you let a guy like Jordan Hicks go, who really helped Malcolm Jenkins. You can't blame the players. I blame the Eagles more for the way this defense is, the Eagles organization, for letting guys go for one, and then for not bringing guys back, or sorry, not going out and trying to get new guys to bring it in, to bring in like a fresh perspective. So I don't agree with this Malcolm Jenkins statement. I think Rasul Douglas also, you can't really blame him as well. I've said it in the past, Rasul Douglas is being used wrong. He should be a safety. He shouldn't be an outside corner. And yeah, so I don't really agree with that, where he's basically saying that Malcolm Jenkins is a selfish player. He just didn't outright say it, but he said the word C, captain, yeah. So he's kind of saying that Malcolm Jenkins didn't really bring guys along, but with this particular issue, Orlando was not in the locker room long enough to see that. I think that you have to be a player in the team for like an entire season to really see the leadership shine through. So yeah, really, I wanted to make this video just to address this entire thing, this entire article, and just some of the stuff he said, because I think it's important to give my perspective. I don't see a lot of Eagles fans looking at this team objectively right now, and it's kind of frightening. Like, if we lose in Buffalo, there's going to be a lot of people that are just mad, upset, and surprised. Whereas me, if we lose in Buffalo, I'm kind of ready for it, because I really don't see the fundamentals of football being achieved here with the Eagles. That's really nothing to say about the Eagles right now. I just think that they're in a funk, guys. They're in a pre-Super Bowl slump. You know, this is always what happens to teams. I think the only reason the Patriots are able to do it year in and year out is, again, they have the cornerstone down, they have the coach, and they have the quarterback, and every single other player is expendable, guys. Remember that. Every single player except for Tom Brady on the New England Patriots is expendable. That's why they win. If a guy ain't working, you ship him out. So I think that's what he's saying here. Overall, what he's saying is the Eagles are in a situation where they have all these guys that won the Super Bowl. The Eagles are promoting from within, which is another stupid thing to do. You know, they're keeping it in. They almost remind me, I don't know if you guys read history or anything, but like the isolation period in Japan. It was like a 200-year period where Japan just isolated itself from the world, and they didn't advance in technology or anything like that. And then a dude named Matthew Perry showed up on a ship, and he had cannons and guns and all this modern stuff, and the Japanese realized, like, holy crap, guys, we need to evolve or we will die. And so just a summary there. If you guys want to read that, go read about that. Go look up the isolation of Japan. Fascinating. But that's kind of how I feel like with the Eagles right now. They're basically just isolating themselves, sitting on their laurels. You know, we won a Super Bowl. We're going to promote from within. We're not going to go out and sign a real offensive coordinator. We're going to promote Mike Groh, you know, things like that. So I don't know. Overall, I'm being honest, guys, I agree with a lot of his criticisms. Now, take that with a grain of salt, because Orlando Scandrick is, in my opinion, a lifelong Cowboy. I think he has the Cowboys' best interest at heart over the Eagles now that he's not playing for a team, which you can't blame him. I mean, he played for them. He was drafted by them, so. But he was in the locker room, and I don't think that this is just coming out of nowhere. I really don't think he just made this stuff up. So anyway, guys, that is the video. This was a really long one, so if you made it to the end, I appreciate you so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about the Eagles. And we're really going to know a lot after this Buffalo game. This Buffalo game is huge, guys, huge. So let me know what you guys think about the Eagles' chances in 2019. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me in this video, whatever you guys think, I'd like to hear from you. Also, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And to all my returning viewers, make sure you hit that notification bell so you can get notified when I make videos like this. But with all that said, guys, thank you all so much for watching. You guys are the best. Thank you for helping and growing and supporting the channel. And this has been Jigsaw0097. I will talk to you all later.